under crystal chandeliers as I quietly wiped down cocktail tables in the corner of the grand ballroom. My cousin Ashley's wedding was in full swing, with 300 guests celebrating in the venue's most exclusive space. I adjusted my simple black polo shirt and continued working, invisible among the designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" Aunt Karen's shrill voice cut through the classical music. She approached with her usual disapproving frown, champagne flute in hand. "I thought you were working at some hotel downtown." "I am working," I replied simply, folding another napkin. "Just helping out with the event." Karen's eyes narrowed as she looked me up and down. "Well, I suppose someone has to do the grunt work. You're just the help after all." She waved dismissively toward the dance floor where my cousins mingled with investment bankers and tech executives. "The rest of the family are actual professionals, you know. Real careers." My Uncle David joined the conversation, loosening his Hermes tie. "Karen's right, Marcus. When are you going to stop playing around with these service jobs? You're 28. Time to grow up and get serious about your future." "This is serious work," I said, continuing to clean the mahogany bar top. "Serious?" Karen laughed loudly enough that nearby guests turned to stare. "Wiping tables is serious? Marcus, your cousin just made partner at Goldman Sachs. Ashley married a neurosurgeon. Even your younger brother is a software engineer at Google. And you're here with a towel in your hand." The wedding photographer captured moments of joy nearby while I restocked champagne glasses. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. "Quarterly revenue reports ready for review. Monterey Bay acquisition closing Monday. Board meeting moved to 2 p.m. I glanced at it briefly and slipped the device back into my pocket. "Are you even listening?" David demanded. "We're trying to help you here. This family has standards. You can't keep embarrassing us at events like this." "I'm not embarrassing anyone," I said calmly, arranging silverware on the service tray. "Look around, Marcus." Karen gestured toward the opulent room with its hand-painted murals and imported Italian marble. "This is the Silverbrook Country Club. Do you know what it costs just to be a member here? More than you make in a year, I guarantee it. The wedding alone cost Ashley's parents $200,000. This is where successful people belong." My cousin Jason approached with his new fiancée, both slightly intoxicated from the open bar. "Hey Marcus. Still doing the hotel thing?" He chuckled and turned to his fiancée. "My cousin here works at hotels. Housekeeping, I think." "Event coordination," I corrected quietly. "Same difference," Jason waved his hand. "At least you're employed, right? That's something." The string quartet began playing Pachelbel's canon as the bride and groom prepared for their first dance. I continued working methodically, ensuring every surface gleamed and every glass was perfectly positioned. The luxury around me was familiar, hand-carved moldings, Persian rugs worth more than most people's cars, original oil paintings that had graced these walls for decades. "You know what your problem is, Marcus?" Karen continued, emboldened by the alcohol and audience. "You have no ambition. No vision. You're content being invisible, cleaning up after successful people. That's fine for some, I suppose, but it's not what this family expects." "Maybe he likes being a wallflower," suggested my cousin Rebecca, joining the growing circle of family members. "Some people are just natural servants. Nothing wrong with knowing your place in life." "Exactly," David nodded approvingly. "The service industry needs workers too. Not everyone can be an executive or doctor. Someone has to do the manual labor." My phone buzzed again. This time it was my head of operations. "Sir, Forbes wants a statement about the hospitality empire expansion. Should I schedule the interview?" I silenced the device and continued working. The conversation grew louder as more relatives gathered, drawn by Karen's animated gesturing and raised voice. "Look at him," she announced to the group. 28 years old, wiping down tables at his own cousin's wedding. No wife, no house, probably still lives in some studio apartment downtown. "At least he's working," offered Aunt Linda half-heartedly. "Working?" Karen scoffed. "This isn't a career, Linda. This is what people do when they have no other options. When they lack the intelligence or drive for real success." The bride's father, my Uncle Robert, approached our growing group with concern. "Is everything all right over here? You're getting a bit loud for the ceremony space." "We're just discussing Marcus's career choices," Karen explained. Or lack thereof. Robert glanced at me sympathetically. Well, honest work is honest work. Not everyone needs to be a millionaire. Exactly my point, Karen continued. He needs to accept his limitations and stop pretending he belongs at events like this. The Silverbrook Club is for members and their guests, not the cleaning staff. I methodically polished another champagne flute, my movements steady and professional. The conversations around me blended into familiar background noise, discussions of stock portfolios, vacation homes in the Hamptons, private school decisions for children not yet born. My family's voices rose above the din, dissecting my life choices with increasing volume and confidence. The problem is entitlement, David declared. This generation thinks they deserve success without earning it. Marcus here probably expects to be handed opportunities without putting in real work. I work plenty, I said simply. Wiping tables isn't work, it's maintenance, Jason laughed. Real work happens in boardrooms and operating theaters. Real work builds empires and changes lives. Real work requires education and vision. The wedding guests continued dancing and celebrating while my family held court near the service area, their voices carrying across the marble floors. Several other guests glanced over curiously at the commotion, but most remained focused on the festivities. You know what I think? Karen's voice reached a new pitch. I think Marcus enjoys being the family disappointment. It's easier than trying and failing. Better to aim low and succeed than aim high and fall short. That's harsh, Karen, Linda protested weakly. It's honest, Karen shot back. Someone needs to tell him the truth. Look around this room, Marcus. Look at the success, the accomplishment, the wealth. This is what ambition looks like. This is what happens when people refuse to settle for mediocrity. The club manager, a distinguished man in his 50s wearing an impeccable navy suit, approached our group with purposeful strides. His expression was serious but respectful as he navigated through the crowd of wedding guests. Several family members continued their animated discussion, unaware of his approach. Excuse me, the manager said politely, waiting for a break in the conversation. Karen barely glanced at him. We're having a private family discussion here. The manager cleared his throat and looked directly at me. Mr. Chin, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt, but the Platinum members are asking for you. There's an urgent matter requiring the owner's immediate attention. The words hung in the air like suspended crystal, refracting the light of the chandeliers above. Karen's champagne flute trembled in her hand, her eyes widening as she processed what she'd just heard. The family circle fell silent, their animated discussion grinding to an abrupt halt. I set down the towels I'd been holding and straightened my polo shirt. What's the nature of the emergency, Robert? The Winterdale Resort acquisition, sir. The sellers are requesting immediate confirmation of the wire transfer. Also, the Japanese investors for the Maui property development are on hold for your approval. David's face had gone pale, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Jason stepped backward, nearly stumbling into a cocktail table. Rebecca grabbed her husband's arm for support, her expression shifting from smug confidence to dawning horror. Of course, I nodded to Robert. Transfer the funds immediately. Schedule the Maui meeting for next week after I return from the Monaco property inspection. I turned to my stunned family. If you'll excuse me, I have a business empire to run. Karen's martini glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the marble floor in a cascade of gin and crystal fragments. The sound echoed through the ballroom, causing nearby guests to turn and stare at our corner of the reception. You own. Karen stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. The Silverbrook Country Club, yes, I confirmed calmly. Along with 47 other luxury properties across North America and Europe. The Chin Hospitality Group has been expanding rapidly this quarter. Robert, the club manager, stepped forward to address my family directly. Ladies and gentlemen, you have the honor of being related to one of the most successful hospitality entrepreneurs in the world. Mr. Chen's empire includes luxury resorts, private clubs, five-star hotels, and exclusive event venues. This club has been part of his portfolio for 3 years. David sank into a nearby chair, his legs apparently unable to support him. 3 years. You've owned this place for 3 years. I purchased it shortly after they rejected your membership application, I replied evenly. Something about insufficient assets and questionable character references. The color drained from David's face as he remembered his humiliating rejection from the exclusive club. He'd blamed it on politics and jealousy, never imagining that his nephew had been the one to review and deny his application. Jason's fiancée tugged at his sleeve urgently. "Jason, didn't you tell me your family couldn't afford country club membership? Didn't you say that's why we're having our reception at the community center?" The question hung in the air as Jason realized the implications. His wedding venue, chosen for its affordability, was a stark contrast to the luxury surrounding us, luxury that his cousin apparently owned. "The cleaning staff uniform," Rebecca whispered, staring at my simple black shirt. "You were working." "I inspect every property personally," I explained. "Quality control requires understanding operations from every level." Tonight I was evaluating our evening service standards during high-profile events. Karen found her voice again, though it cracked with emotion. But you said you worked at hotels downtown." "I do work at hotels. I own 12 of them in this city alone, including the Grand Metropolitan where you held your anniversary party last month. The bill was quite reasonable, thanks to the family discount I approved." The weight of their words from the past hour seemed to crash down on the family simultaneously. Every dismissive comment, every condescending laugh, every assumption about my limitations now hung between us like an indictment of their character. Robert stepped forward again. "Sir, shall I have security escort your guests to more appropriate accommodations? The staff quarters are available if they'd prefer something more budget-friendly." The suggestion sent visible shudders through my relatives. Karen gripped David's arm, her knuckles white with tension. The thought of being relegated to employee housing at a club they just learned I owned was apparently their worst nightmare realized. "That won't be necessary, Robert," I said calmly. "Family is family regardless of their opinions about honest work." My phone buzzed with another message from my publicist. "Wall Street Journal wants comment on hospitality merger rumors." CNN scheduled for morning interview about industry leadership. I glanced at it briefly and looked back at my stunned relatives. "I should return to the celebration," I announced. "Ashley's wedding deserves the best service possible. Robert, please ensure our guests have everything they need. And Karen." I paused to meet her eyes directly. "Your membership application was approved this morning. Welcome to my club." The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. Karen had spent the evening mocking my service work while standing in my own establishment, criticizing my lack of ambition while surrounded by the fruits of my success, questioning my place among successful people while being my guest at my own venue. As I walked back toward the dance floor where Ashley and her new husband celebrated their future together, I heard Karen whisper to David behind me, "How long do you think he's been listening to us talk about him like that?" The answer, of course, was years. But tonight, for the first time, the conversation had finally shifted in my favor. The wedding continued around us, 300 guests celebrating love and new beginnings while my family grappled with a reality that had been hiding in plain sight all along. The crystal chandeliers cast the same elegant light, the string quartet played the same beautiful melodies, and the champagne sparkled just as brilliantly